Have you ever been asked the question, what is your happy place? Somewhere where the pressure of responsibility, the chaos of day-to-day life, and the echoes of our past are all gone. Where all things we simply can't quite face yet are out of sight and out of mind. Imagine you find yourself in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by endless forests and towering cliffs. There's no one here, no distractions, just the quiet hum of nature and the occasional crackle of a radio attached to your hip. It feels like a fresh start, a chance to breathe, to escape. But what if the stillness doesn't bring peace? What if instead, it magnifies everything you tried to leave behind? What if this wilderness, your supposed happy place, isn't your escape, but your reckoning? This is the premise of Firewatch, a game that begins with an unspoken question. Can we ever truly flee from ourselves? In the simplest of terms, Firewatch is a story about running. Henry, the man you'll come to know intimately, takes a job as a fire lookout in the Wyoming wilderness. His reasons? They're unclear at first. Maybe he's searching for clarity, for a moment to collect himself. Maybe he's breaking away from something too painful to face. Perhaps fear overtook him, a feeling we are all too familiar with, blinding his decision-making and leading him astray. But why rush to a conclusion? Instead, let's enjoy this proverbial happy place of his and fall in love with its vast forests and distant horizons, each whispering their secrets one step at a time. A voice crackles over your radio, Delilah, your supervisor. She's sharp, funny, and occasionally vulnerable. Like you, she seems to be searching for something, though what that is remains as unclear as the early morning haze over the mountains. Together, your conversations form the backbone of Firewatch's story. But this isn't a tale told through cutscenes or exposition. It unfolds slowly, piece by piece, like the very roots, branches, and leaves making up the many trees surrounding you in the forest. A father and son who lived in these woods, their lives forever changed by a single tragedy. Ron and Dave, two rangers whose camaraderie hides unspoken truths. Delilah, a faceless and seemingly lovable daily companion with her own dark side. And the forest itself, a living, breathing presence that seems to wash over you as much as you watch it. As Henry and Delilah's lives begin to intertwine, their respective attempts to escape their problems only breed new complications. Their bond becomes both a lifeline and a weight, tethering them to a shared vulnerability. But this connection also unravels something darker, a deeper, lingering tension in the forest. Strange events begin to unfold, shadows in the trees, sounds in the brush, and an ever-present feeling that someone or something is watching. On top of their own struggles, these mysteries compound the sense of unease, forcing Henry and Delilah to question not only their choices, but also the very safety of the space that they have retreated to. The sad truth about procrastination is that no matter how far you go, the things you're escaping always have a way of finding you. In Firewatch, the wilderness isn't just a setting, it's a mirror. The further you explore its trails and hidden paths, the more it reflects what you've buried deep within yourself. What are Henry and Delilah hiding from? What drove them to these watchtowers, these places of isolation? And what happens when their lives and their secrets begin to intersect? You will not be given all the answers up front. You're forced to let yourself linger in the mystery, in the unspoken tension between its characters, and the weight of a world that feels both alive and unsettlingly empty. The game invites you to piece together its story, not just through dialogue, but through its landscapes, its quiet moments, and the things it chooses not to say. But make no mistake, this isn't a game about the simplicity and delight of wandering through beautiful forests. It's a story about self-destruction, about what happens when the things we choose to run from catch up to us, about the inevitability of confrontation, whether we choose to face it or let life force it upon us. As the journey unfolds, you'll find yourself asking questions, not just about the characters, but about yourself. What would you do if faced with the same choices? What have you been running from? And when the time comes, will you have the strength to stop and face it? Firewatch is a mystery, not just a mystery to be solved, but a mystery to be felt. Its answers aren't always clear, its truths not always easy to confront, but that's what makes it unforgettable. So let's step into the forest together. Let's follow the trails, listen to the whispers of the wind, and see where this journey takes us. Maybe it's an escape. Maybe it's a reckoning. Maybe it's both. But one thing is certain: the forest will leave its mark. The story of Firewatch doesn't begin with Henry's escape to the Wyoming wilderness. It begins with a small team of storytellers who dared to create something profoundly personal in an industry often dominated by spectacle and action. To understand how this game came to life, we need to step back and explore the creative minds behind it. A group of individuals who didn't just want to make a game, but a narrative experience that lingers long after the screen fades to black. Campo Santo, the studio behind Firewatch, was born out of a shared vision. In 2013, Jake Rodkin and Sean Vanneman, two veterans from Telltale Games best known for their work on The Walking Dead, set out to build something new. Their goal? To create games that told deeply human stories, grounded in emotional honesty and meaningful choices. Joining them were graphic designer and artist Ollie Moss, known for his work on minimalist movie posters, and Nels Anderson, a lead designer who had gained acclaim for his work on Mark of the Ninja. Together, they formed a team that valued artistry and storytelling above all else. From the very beginning, Firewatch was envisioned as a game about people, not heroes or villains, but ordinary people navigating complex emotions and personal struggles. The idea of placing the player in a remote fire lookout tower stemmed from the team's fascination with isolation and the unique environment of the American West. Sean Vanneman, who grew up in Wyoming, drew on his own experiences and the landscapes of his childhood to craft the setting. The concept appears to be simple: to create a game where the player's primary interaction would be through dialogue, exploring the dynamics of a relationship that evolves over time. This relationship would be between Henry, the player character, and Delilah, a voice on the other end of a radio. But this was an extraordinarily bold move in an industry where action and direct player control often take center stage. Campo Santo believed in the power of conversation to tell a story, a decision that set Firewatch apart. At the heart of this design philosophy was a commitment to authenticity. The team wanted players to feel like they were stepping into a real, lived-in world populated by characters with genuine emotions and motivations. To achieve this, they hired Cissy Jones and Rich Sommer, two talented voice actors whose performances would bring Henry and Delilah to life. Their dialogue was recorded together in a way that allowed for natural improvisation, lending an organic quality to their conversations that is rarely seen in games. But Firewatch isn't just about its characters, it's about the world they inhabit. The Wyoming wilderness, with its sprawling forests, jagged cliffs, and hidden trails, is as much a character as Henry and Delilah. To bring this world to life, Campo Santo enlisted Ollie Moss and Jane Ning, an environmental artist who previously worked on The Cave and Brutal Legend. Together, they crafted a visual style inspired by mid-century national park posters, blending vibrant colors and a minimalist design to create a landscape that feels both nostalgic and timeless. This artistic vision wasn't just about aesthetics, it was integral to the story. The wilderness had to feel vast enough to reflect Henry's isolation, yet intimate enough to draw players into its mysteries. Every detail, from the placement of a fallen tree to the way the sunlight filters through the canopy, was meticulously designed to evoke emotion and curiosity. Another key figure in Firewatch's development was Chris Remo, who composed the game's hauntingly beautiful score. His music, subtle and evocative, became the emotional undercurrent of the game, enhancing its themes of loneliness, discovery, and connection. The soundtrack is a masterclass in restraint, knowing when to amplify a moment and when to step back and let the silence speak. As the game took shape, Campo Santo remained committed to its core vision, a story-driven experience that trusted the player's intelligence and emotional depth. They rejected traditional markers of progression like combat or puzzles in favor of environmental storytelling and player-driven dialogue. This wasn't a game where you'd save the world or defeat an enemy, it was a game where you'd navigate the messy, uncertain terrain of human relationships. The team also wanted to ensure that Firewatch felt personal to each player. The dialogue system was designed to allow players to shape Henry's personality through their choices, fostering a sense of ownership over his journey. Whether you approached Delilah with warmth, sarcasm, or silence, your interactions shaped the tone of the story in subtle but meaningful ways. As the game neared completion, Campo Santo faced the challenge of balancing player agency with narrative coherence. They wanted to give players the freedom to explore the world at their own pace, while ensuring the story unfolded naturally. It was a delicate balance, but one they approached with care and creativity. When Firewatch was released in February 2016, it was met with widespread acclaim. Critics praised its storytelling, voice acting, and art direction, while players connected deeply with its themes of escapism and emotional vulnerability. For many, it was more than just a game. It was a mirror, reflecting their own struggles and questions back at them. Something often overlooked is how Firewatch entered the scene during a fiercely competitive era in gaming. Players were being captivated by titles like The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, Black Ops 3, Undertale, Overwatch, Dark Souls 3, and Uncharted 4, among many others. These games spanned a range of genres, from high-stakes shooters and multiplayer hero-based battles to sprawling exploration and tightly woven narratives. In the midst of these blockbusters, Firewatch, a less than 4-hour indie game with no combat or sprawling worlds, stood as a quiet contender. Its focus on storytelling and emotional depth set it apart from the adrenaline-fueled action and grand adventures that dominated the industry. Yet, despite the competition, Firewatch made its mark on millions of players. It proved that a game didn't need to be long, complex, or action-packed to leave a lasting impression. Its charm lay in its simplicity, its deeply human story, and its commitment to do something different. Over time, Firewatch has aged like fine wine, its emotional resonance and unique approach to storytelling continuing to captivate new audiences. The fact that it thrived in a period filled with some of gaming's greatest hits is a testament to the vision of Campo Santo and the universal appeal of its themes. The story of Firewatch's creation is one of passion, collaboration, and a willingness to take risks. It's a testament to what can happen when a team of artists and storytellers come together with a shared purpose, to create something that doesn't just entertain, but resonates. As we move deeper into this retrospective, let's carry that spirit with us. Let's explore the characters, the world, and the choices that make Firewatch such a profound and unforgettable experience. Because just like the forest it's set in, this is a story with depths waiting to be discovered. Before we begin, I would like to recognize that this section of the video will contain many potential spoilers, and if you wish to avoid these spoilers, I'd advise you to step out now as I will reference the story throughout the rest of the retrospective. Thank you, and back to the video. Firewatch begins with, let me just say, one freight train of an invitation to step into the shoes of Henry, a middle-aged man seeking solace in the Shoshone National Forest after his life unravels in the wake of his wife Julia's early onset dementia. What begins as a simple escape into the wilderness soon transforms into a deeply personal exploration of isolation, connection, and the truths we often try to avoid. The game opens with a poignant series of text-based vignettes that set the emotional tone for the journey ahead. Through brief yet powerful choices, the player learns about Henry and Julia's relationship, their meeting, their love, and the devastating toll of Julia's illness. It's a heartbreakingly human introduction, grounding the player in Henry's need for escape. By the time you take full control of Henry, the weight of his past is no longer just upon his shoulders, but upon yours too. As Henry, your task seems straightforward. Act as a fire lookout, monitoring the vast Shoshone National Forest from your tower. On your first day, you're introduced to Delilah, the supervisor for the region. Her voice crackles over your handheld radio, breaking the silence of your solitude. Delilah is sharp-witted, sarcastic, and immediately disarming. She's also, like Henry, a person running from her own life. Your relationship with Delilah forms the core of the gameplay. Dialogue choices shape your dynamic, allowing you to respond with humor, vulnerability, or guarded professionalism. These options not only detail the many perspectives of Henry's personality, but also help you, the player, feel more connected and like your personality is reflected through Henry. Delilah teases and provokes, encouraging Henry to open up, and as the days unfold, their conversations grow deeper and more intimate. The player can choose how much Henry shares, but the dialogue always feels natural, authentic, and deeply human. Early in your tenure, a routine patrol leads you to an encounter with two teenage girls setting off fireworks in a nearby lake. The interaction is mundane on the surface. Calm the situation, get them to stop. But it serves as a reminder of Henry's responsibilities and his presence in a world that doesn't pause for his pain. The teenager's sudden disappearance later in the game adds a layer of mystery, setting off a chain of events that escalates the tension in unexpected ways. As Henry ventures deeper into the forest, the Shoshone begins to reveal its secrets. You find remnants of other lives, such as the scattered belongings of a young boy named Brian Goodwin, and letters from his father Ned, who was also a fire lookout. Brian's story, told through artifacts and environmental clues, is one of tragedy. A boy who dreamed of adventures cut short by circumstances he couldn't control. Equally poignant are the hidden notes shared between Ron and Dave, another pair of lookouts whose relationship is as heartfelt as it is complex. Many tales are hidden within the shadows of these woods, waiting to be uncovered. The forest itself becomes both a sanctuary and a threat. You navigate winding trails, cross rickety bridges, and explore hidden caches, all while the wilderness grows more ominous. Strange occurrences begin to pile up. A shadowy figure watching Henry from a distance, a mysterious locked gate blocking access to part of the forest, and the unsettling discovery that someone has been monitoring you and Delilah's conversations. The unease intensifies when Henry is assaulted during one of his patrols, directly after finding notes of their recorded conversations, leading to the assumption that their radios are tapped. Though Delilah goes to extreme lengths to provide a replacement, it's left in a supply cache rather than handed over directly, a choice that feels strange and secretive, hinting at her own distrust or fear. Perhaps one of these shrouded tales of the woods is Delilah's too. The new radio allows communication to resume, but the tension between Henry and Delilah grows, fueled by lingering doubts and half-truths. Such tension is exemplified when Henry discovers an abandoned research station. Inside, he finds surveillance equipment, recordings, and notes detailing his and Delilah's actions. The paranoia is palpable. Who is watching them, and why? The forest, once serene, feels suffocating, its silence no longer comforting, but oppressive. Throughout these events, Henry and Delilah's relationship evolves. Their conversations take on a more urgent tone filled with confessions, doubts, and fears. Delilah begins to open up about her own regrets, and Henry finds himself questioning his choices, both in the forest and in his life. Their bond is messy and imperfect, shaped by shared loneliness and the need for connection. Meanwhile, the forest itself becomes increasingly volatile. The looming threat of a wildfire, which you name yourself, casts a shadow over their daily routines, mirroring the escalating tension between the characters and their environment. Delilah's habit of late-night drinking adds another layer to her character, revealing an ongoing struggle to cope with the isolation of her role. Her jovial exterior often gives way to moments of vulnerability, but even these feel guarded, as if she's keeping Henry and the player at arm's length. As Henry continues his investigation, he stumbles upon a backpack containing a key to a locked cave, a foreboding place that seems to hold answers. Venturing inside, Henry is ambushed, the cave door slamming shut behind him. The trap underscores the stakes of his journey, heightening the mystery of who might be watching or sabotaging him. While attempting to escape the cave, Henry discovers a body, Brian Goodwin. The tragic scene offers a grim piece to the puzzle, revealing the boy's accidental death and deepening the weight of the story. As the story reaches this climax, the mystery of the surveillance is revealed. It isn't a grand conspiracy or a malicious plot. It's Ned Goodwin, Brian's father, who has been living in isolation since his son's accidental death. Racked with guilt, Ned retreated into the forest, cutting himself off from the world. The surveillance was his way of ensuring no one came too close to uncovering his secrets. The revelation is both tragic and anticlimactic, mirroring the themes of the game. There are no villains, no grand resolutions, just broken people trying to navigate their pain. Ned's story serves as a dark reflection of Henry's own journey, a warning of what happens when we retreat too far into isolation. Returning to the story of Ron and Don, we find another example of self-destruction through doubt and procrastination within the forest. At first, their letters seem like lighthearted exchanges, jokes about their duties, musings about the forest, and small observations about life in isolation. But as you uncover more of their correspondence, a deeper story begins to take shape. Dave, who was gay, possibly took the lookout job to escape societal prejudice and his own family's disapproval. His affection for Ron, hinted at in the notes, grows clearer with each discovery, though he never openly confesses his feelings. Ron, meanwhile, is portrayed as a carefree ladies' man involved with Debbie, the Forest Service receptionist. His casual remarks about his romantic endeavors are filled with warmth and humor, but inadvertently cause Dave quiet heartache. The dynamic between the two reflects the theme of unspoken truths, Dave wrestling with his feelings in solitude, while Ron remains either unaware or unwilling to address the undercurrent of their relationship. Their bond is further complicated when Dave becomes the victim of a hate-motivated attack at a bar, an incident he initially keeps from Ron. When Ron eventually learns of it, his reaction is one of anger and protective concern, but the emotional depth of the situation remains unaddressed between them. The final note from Ron reveals his decision to leave for Alaska with Debbie, leaving Dave behind with only a heartfelt parting gift, a recording of the song All Shoshone. The gesture is kind, yet bittersweet, marking the end of their time together and leaving their relationship unresolved. Later, it's revealed that Ron and Debbie eventually broke up, and Ron remained in Alaska while Debbie stayed at the park. The story of Ron and Dave is a quiet, poignant reflection of Firewatch's broader themes: connection, loneliness, and the things we run from. Their unspoken truths and missed opportunities weave seamlessly into the narrative tapestry of the game, standing as a testament to the complexities of human relationships and the emotional weight carried by those who choose to live in solitude. Together with the stories of Brian and Ned, Ron and Dave's tale deepens the emotional resonance of the Shoshone, turning it into a landscape as rich with human history as it is with natural beauty. The game ends as it began, with uncertainty. A massive fire forces Henry to evacuate, leaving the Shoshone behind. He and Delilah never meet in person. Their final conversation is tinged with regret and longing. As Henry boards a rescue helicopter, the forest fades into the distance, its mysteries unresolved. Firewatch doesn't offer neat conclusions or tidy resolutions. Instead, it leaves you with questions about the characters, about yourself, and about the nature of human connection. It's a story about the things we run from, the things we can't escape, and the fragile bonds that tether us to the world. At its heart, Firewatch is a story about avoidance. Every character you encounter, whether directly or indirectly, is running from something. For Henry, it's the heartbreak of his wife Julia's early onset dementia and the unbearable weight of what it means to stay and care for someone who no longer remembers you. For Delilah, it's years of deflecting her own insecurities and failures through humor, charm, and alcohol, using the forest as a shield from the world she's too afraid to face. And for Ned Goodwin, it's the crushing guilt of his son Brian's death, a tragedy he cannot confront, so he buries himself in the wilderness instead, letting his isolation fester into something dark and destructive. The Wyoming wilderness is more than a setting. It's a metaphor. Its sprawling beauty and isolation reflect the vast emotional distances the characters place between themselves and their problems. Each trail, lookout tower, and hidden cache mirrors the choices they've made to retreat rather than face the pain of their realities. Yet the Shoshone also serves as a catalyst, an unrelenting force that refuses to let them hide forever. For Henry and Delilah, the forest forces them into each other's lives in a way neither expected nor entirely welcomed. Their connection begins with a crackling radio and grows into something deeply personal, a bond forged in shared isolation. But it's not without its fractures. Delilah's wit and charm mask her tendency to deflect, to avoid accountability for her actions. She hides behind the distance the radio provides, often withholding information or subtly manipulating Henry. And Henry, while more forthcoming, is complicit in their shared escapism. Their connection is both a salve for their loneliness and a reminder of their inability to truly confront their pasts. Take the moments when Delilah's late-night drinking leads to erratic and revealing conversations. Her jovial tone often gives way to melancholy, hinting at years of self-imposed exile. She admits she's been out in the forest far longer than most lookouts stay, a detail that underscores her reluctance to face the world she left behind. Meanwhile, Henry's conversations with her show a man trying to reconcile his own guilt and fears, but always stopping short of true vulnerability. The themes of running and reckoning are not confined to Henry and Delilah. The forest holds the stories of others who came before them, each carrying their own burdens. The tragic tale of Brian Goodwin, a young boy with dreams of exploration, and his father Ned, a man paralyzed by grief, serves as the game's most haunting reflection of what happens when avoidance becomes all-consuming. The lengths Ned goes to in order to hide from his son's death are staggering. Surveilling the forest, constructing a hidden camp, and manipulating Henry and Delilah through fear and paranoia. It's a stark reminder that avoidance often demands more effort and energy than the act of confronting the truth itself. Ned's actions, while deeply flawed, reveal the extent to which fear can shape and distort a person's life when left unchecked. Even Ron and Dave's story, revealed through letters tucked away in supply caches, adds another layer to the game's exploration of human connection and avoidance. Dave's unspoken feelings for Ron and Ron's oblivious or willful ignorance of them paint a picture of two people sharing the same space yet unable to bridge the emotional distance between them. The unresolved nature of their relationship mirrors the game's larger narrative. Life is full of questions left unanswered, connections left incomplete, and truths left unsaid. The forest fire that ultimately forces Henry to leave is more than a physical danger. It's a culmination of everything the game has been building toward. The fire, uncontrollable and consuming, mirrors the emotions Henry and Delilah have tried to suppress. It's a reckoning, not just for them, but for the entire narrative. The fire pushes them out of their comfort zones, literally and figuratively, and leaves them with no choice but to face the realities they've been avoiding. Yet even in the face of such upheaval, Firewatch resists the urge to provide closure. Delilah and Henry never meet, their parting conversation filled with regret and unspoken longing. Henry's helicopter ride out of the Shoshone feels less like an ending and more like a transition, a step forward but not a resolution. The forest fades into the distance, but its impact lingers, much like the unresolved emotions and unanswered questions that define the game. What makes Firewatch so emotionally resonant is its refusal to shy away from the messiness of human relationships. It doesn't offer easy answers or tidy conclusions because life rarely does. Instead, it invites players to sit with the discomfort, to reflect on the ways we all run from our fears, and to consider what it might take to finally stop and face them. The game's themes are universal: grief, guilt, loneliness, and the fragile beauty of connection. After all, we have all experienced these emotions in some kind of way during our lives. But it's in their execution that Firewatch becomes something truly special. The game's characters, its setting, and its narrative all work together to create an experience that feels deeply human. It's not just a story you play, it's a story you carry with you, long after you've left the forest behind. Because if there's one truth Firewatch leaves you with, it's this: you can only run for so long. Eventually, the forest, the metaphorical one or the literal one, will find you, and when it does, it won't offer answers, but it will ask the questions you've been avoiding. It's up to you whether you'll answer them. One of Firewatch's greatest achievements is its ability to craft a world that feels alive, immersive, and reflective of its characters' struggles. The Wyoming wilderness is not just a backdrop, it's an active character in the story, inviting exploration while mirroring the emotional depth of its narrative. From the moment you climb to your watchtower, the Shoshone engulfs you in its serene beauty. Rolling hills, dense forests, and skies painted in vibrant hues of amber and crimson, inspired by mid-century national park posters, the art direction blends nostalgia with vibrancy, creating a landscape that feels both timeless and personal. The deliberate use of color evokes the tranquility and loneliness of the wilderness, while the minimalist design enhances its allure, making every view feel like a painting come to life. The forest isn't just a space to traverse, it's one you engage with. Early on, you're given climbing ropes to scale cliffs and descend rocky terrain, opening up paths that feel hidden and rewarding. Later in your journey, an axe becomes your key to breaking through brush or creating bridges from standing trees to cross ravines. These tools don't just facilitate movement, they deepen your relationship with the environment, turning each journey into an act of problem solving and discovery. Hidden caches and scenic vistas reward your curiosity, offering glimpses of the forest history and the faint echoes of past lives. Small interactions, like adopting a turtle and naming it Turt Reynolds, or tossing rocks into a ravine, make the world feel alive and interactive in subtle but meaningful ways. The wildlife further breathes life into the Shoshone, from the rustle of a raccoon scurrying through the underbrush to the distant cry of a bird cutting through the silence. These moments remind you that the forest is teeming with stories both human and natural. While encounters with animals are brief, they feel grounded, adding an organic unpredictability to the landscape. Discovering abandoned equipment or supply caches filled with trinkets left by past lookouts adds another layer to the history of the world. Every detail, from weathered maps and marked trails to scattered notes, grounds you in a place that feels authentic and storied. Dynamic weather and shifting daylight cycles enhance the immersion, ensuring the Shoshone never feels static. Fog rolls through the hills in the early morning, muting colors and sharpening silhouettes. Afternoons are bathed in golden light, and nights bring a stillness punctuated by the glow of your flashlight or the distant flicker of lightning. Storms roll in, their wind rattling against your tower and rain drumming on the roof. These shifts not only provide visual variety, but evoke emotions that match the narrative's ebb and flow. A sunny afternoon may inspire calm as you hike along a trail, while a sudden downpour amplifies tension during a key moment of discovery. Chris Ramos' haunting score ties it all together, accentuating the Shoshone's beauty and mystery. His music swells at just the right moments, transforming serene vistas into meditative experiences or heightening the unease of a late-night discovery. Whether it's a gentle acoustic melody accompanying a hike or a dissonant string echoing a moment of fear. The soundtrack becomes an emotional guide, amplifying the atmosphere and drawing you further into the world. The Shoshone also holds its secrets. Hidden caves and the mysterious research station spark curiosity and unease. The station, left unattended for the summer, is pristine yet unsettling. Its still functioning equipment and sterile interior contrast sharply with the organic world outside, serving as a reminder of humanity's intrusion into nature. These moments of exploration give the sense that the Shoshone isn't entirely yours, that others have been here before and left their mark just as you will. Interacting with the environment is as much about discovery as it is about connection. Picking up a pine cone, breaking a branch to forge a new path, or finding a forgotten comic book in a supply cache, these small actions ground you in Henry's world. They encourage you to slow down and to notice the details, to appreciate the forest not just as a setting, but as a space that feels lived in and deeply personal. Even Delilah's voice ties the environment to the narrative. Her musings about the landscape, jokes about its quirks, or quiet moments of reflection make the wilderness feel shared. Even though you never see her in person, her commentary adds texture to the world, offering insights and emotions that deepen your connection to the Shoshone. Yet her physical absence underscores the solitude of Henry's journey, highlighting the tension between connection and isolation. In Firewatch, the Shoshone isn't just a place to explore, it's a world to lose yourself in. Its beauty, from the golden hues of sunset to the quiet murmur of the wind through the trees, stays with you long after you leave its trails behind. Every rustling leaf, every distant call of wildlife, and every sun-dappled clearing creates a tapestry of tranquility that lingers in your mind. When the game ends and you leave the forest behind, you realize the Shoshone wasn't just a place to visit. For a time, it was your happy place too, a fleeting yet unforgettable reminder of nature's power to captivate, soothe, and inspire. For a game that spans only 4 to 5 hours, Firewatch achieves an extraordinary level of impact. The storytelling is its crowning jewel, delivering an emotional punch in such a short span that you feel as though you've lived an entire lifetime through Henry's eyes. From the opening moments where you navigate Henry's choices in text-based vignettes, his love story with Julia, her tragic early onset dementia, and the heartbreak that follows, you're immediately pulled into his world. The ability to shape his responses, to choose how he reacts to life-altering news, is nothing short of brilliant. It establishes an emotional connection in minutes, ensuring that you're invested in his journey long before you take your first step into the Shoshone. The game's interactivity elevates this connection. From the humorous to the heartwarming, every choice feels like it shapes Henry's personality in subtle ways. The dialogue options allow you to decide whether Henry is sarcastic, thoughtful, or reserved, and this extends to the world itself. Small moments like tossing the teenage girls' boombox into the lake to annoy them, or adopting a turtle and naming it Turt Reynolds, infuse the experience with personal touches. Even naming the wildfire, an event that feels monumental in the story, reinforces the sense of ownership and individuality that the game offers. The forest is alive with small, intimate interactions that make the world feel more immersive. Take the moment when you find a raccoon in an abandoned cabin. Its sudden appearance is startling and hilarious, a reminder that the Shoshone is as unpredictable as it is beautiful. These interactions aren't just for show, they feel purposeful, designed to deepen your connection to the environment and make every discovery memorable. It's these details that transform the game from a simple walking simulator into something truly beautiful. One of the most surprising aspects of Firewatch is how much depth is hidden in its side stories. Ron and Dave's tale, told exclusively through notes left in supply caches, is a touching subplot about friendship, unspoken truths, and the history of the land. While their story could have been expanded with more direct gameplay elements, the fragmented delivery feels right for a game so rooted in mystery. Reading their notes feels like piecing together a puzzle, their voices echoing in the quiet wilderness long after you close the cache box. Delilah's character is another highlight. Her abrasiveness and quick wit create an immediate rapport with Henry. But as the story unfolds, you begin to see the cracks in her facade. Her late-night drinking and increasingly vulnerable conversations reveal a woman struggling with isolation, regret, and her own choices. Delilah feels real in a way that few video game characters do, her flaws and contradictions making her as compelling as she is relatable. Visually, Firewatch is stunning. Its art style, reminiscent of mid-century national park posters, perfectly complements the game's storytelling focus. The vibrant colors and minimalist design evoke nostalgia while grounding you in the wilderness. The game doesn't need photorealism to feel alive. Its beauty lies in its ability to capture the spirit of the Shoshone through bold strokes and warm tones. The one thing I wish the game offered was a better camera system. While the in-game disposable camera is a charming touch, the inability to take video shots or capture moments with more precision feels like a missed opportunity in such a visually rich world. The voice acting deserves equal praise. Rich Sommer and Cissy Jones bring Henry and Delilah to life with performances that are natural and unforced. Their dialogue flows seamlessly, capturing the humor, tension, and vulnerability of their relationship. It's a testament to the actors and writers that their conversations feel more like eavesdropping on real people than listening to scripted lines. The pacing of the story, from its slow build to its climactic revelations, feels deliberate and well-crafted. The discovery of Ned's hidden bunker and the lengths he went to avoid facing the truth about his son's death are haunting and unforgettable. His paranoia and isolation serve as a stark warning about the dangers of avoiding confrontation. The effort Ned put into surveillance and deception is a powerful reminder of how avoiding the inevitable can often take more energy than facing it head-on. That said, the game isn't without its flaws. One recurring issue is the frequent need to traverse the entire map for objectives. While I understand the intent, building suspense and emphasizing Henry's solitude, there are moments when these long treks feel like filler rather than meaningful gameplay. A little more variety in these sequences would have gone a long way toward maintaining immersion. On the technical side, I did encounter a few bugs, particularly with the out-of-bounds areas. On several occasions, my character would get stuck, unable to move forward unless I walked backward or restarted the game. Interaction animations like chopping trees or clearing brush occasionally glitched, causing Henry to slide back instead of performing the action. While these issues were frustrating, they didn't detract significantly from the overall experience. Despite these minor critiques, Firewatch remains a masterpiece of emotional storytelling and immersive design. Every aspect of the game, from its art and music to its dialogue and world building, feels meticulously crafted. It's a game that lingers in your mind long after the credits roll, not because of its length or complexity, but because of the depth of its heart. As I think back on my time in the Shoshone, I'm struck by how little I can truly complain about. The game is a love letter to storytelling, to nature, and to the quiet power of human connection. It's not perfect, but it doesn't have to be. Firewatch is beautiful in its imperfections, just like the lives it portrays. It's a game I'll return to not for the answers it provides, but for the questions it dares to ask. At its heart, Firewatch is a story about avoidance, a tale of people seeking solace from the unbearable and the unspoken, only to find that the act of running doesn't offer freedom, but delay. The Wyoming wilderness becomes a stage for this universal truth, a place where Henry, Delilah, and the echoes of those who came before them confront their fears, not on their terms, but on the forest's. From the first moments, the game invites you into a world of breathtaking beauty and serene isolation. The Shoshone feels like an escape, a reprieve from the chaos of daily life. But as the trails lengthen and the days pass, it becomes clear that this place is not a refuge, it is a crucible. Every rustling leaf, every crackling radio transmission, every shadow in the trees serves to unravel the carefully constructed barriers the characters have built around themselves. And as the player, you are not spared this reckoning. The Shoshone reflects your choices, your questions, and your fears. Firewatch reminds us of a truth we often avoid. The energy we expend running from our problems often surpasses the effort it takes to face them. Ned Goodwin's heartbreaking lengths to hide from his son's death, a hidden bunker, forged conspiracies, a life of total isolation, are a stark mirror for all the ways we construct walls around our pain. Delilah's deflections, Henry's flight from Julia, Ron and Dave's unspoken truths, each is a thread in a tapestry of avoidance that ultimately frays in the relentless pull of the forest. The brilliance of Firewatch lies in how it doesn't spoon-feed resolution. Henry and Delilah's bond, built on shared isolation, offers solace but no salvation. The wildfire that consumes the Shoshone is a metaphorical and literal reminder that life will always force confrontation. You can't run from the fire, you can only decide how you face it. And yet, there is beauty in the struggle. Firewatch doesn't condemn its characters for their avoidance, it humanizes them. It shows us that the act of running is itself a kind of survival, a coping mechanism for the weight of our lives. But it also gently nudges us to see that survival is not enough. To truly live, we must confront the things we fear most, the regrets, the grief, and the truths we hide even from ourselves. As Henry boards the helicopter and the Shoshone fades into the distance, the game doesn't offer closure. There are no tidy endings or final revelations. Instead, it leaves you with the echoes of a story that feels profoundly human. The forest, with its trails and secrets, is gone, but it lingers, not as a memory, but as a piece of you. Because Firewatch isn't just a game. It's a reflection of the lives we lead, the questions we avoid, and the courage it takes to step into the fire. It's a reminder that while we may search for our happy place, what we truly need isn't escape, it's reckoning. And when the time comes to face it, perhaps we'll be stronger for having walked these trails, listened to these whispers, and found in the quiet heart of the Shoshone the strength to stand still. The next time you find yourself facing a hard truth, a difficult decision, or a moment of loss, think of the lives intertwined with yours and the stories they carry. Remember that every life is shaped by its moments of fire and brimstone. Confronting those struggles won't be easy, but it will always lead to growth. So ask yourself, who or what is the Julia in your life? What are you running from? And why? Be strong. Summon those few precious seconds of courage to face the fire and take control of your story. Because if you don't, the fire just might take control of your story instead. This has been Firewatch, confronting the wildfire within. Thank you. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching and sticking around until the end. I did my best this time around to really up my editing and audio skills to make the best experience for you all, since my last video was my first experience with editing. Feel free to share any suggestions in the comments for me. If you have a game you'd love for me to turn into a cinematic video like this one, I'd love to know that as well. Make sure to like and subscribe as it helps me out a ton. Thank you again and have a wonderful day.